This morning we take a look at the 9th commandment, and certainly we will get to that in just a few moments. A young boy named Johnny was one of those kids. Didn't matter what happened, he was constantly late for school. And the thing of it was that even though he might have been late every day to school, he would come up with this outrageous reason why he was late. One day the teacher had basically had enough, and she decided that she was fed up with his exaggerations of his lies, if you will. And so she says to the principal that the next time this happens, she's sending him to the principal. Well, the principal tells him go ahead and do so because the next time he shows up, he has a story that will keep this kid from lying from here on out. So the next day, Johnny shows up 2 hours late. The boy says to his teacher, I was 2 hours early today, so I had time to fish in the pond on my way to school. I caught a 17-pound bass, and I had to take it home because if I didn't clean it or didn't freeze it, my mom would have been angry, so I'm sorry I'm late. The teacher says, that's not going to cut it for me. So she sends him to the principal, she explains, and she says, explain that to him. So he does so, and the principal says to Johnny about his own trip to school that day. He says, Johnny, I was walking to school on the trails in the park today when I heard something behind me. I turned around and I was shocked to see a giant grizzly bear behind me. He was 24 feet tall, had 6-inch fangs. He was going to attack me. And just like that, a little dog ran out of the bushes, jumped up, attacked the bear, and then that little dog ate the bear right there in front of me. So what do you think of that? And the boy says, oh yeah, that was my dog Sparky. That's his 3rd bear this week. We're born liars. You don't have to teach a kid to lie. You teach them not to lie. Once again, from Patterson and Kim's book, The Day America Told the Truth, 64% of Americans say that they will lie for convenience as long as no one is hurt. 66% of all Americans say there is nothing wrong with telling a lie. When asked if they believe that honesty is the best policy, only 31% said they agree with that statement. You see, when you deal with other people, be it a business or in your family or in your neighborhood or work, even in your school, always tell the truth. Another story is told of 4 senior students who had spring fever real bad and skipped the first 2 hours of school. They arrived late. And each one had the same story. We had a flat tire. Well, the teacher said, okay, take a seat. You need to understand you missed a quiz when you were gone, so you need to take the quiz now. So take out a sheet of paper, blank sheet of paper, and put your name on the top. Each of the 4 kids put their name on the top of a blank piece of paper. Here's the one question in the quiz. Which tire is flat? Isn't that something? Doug Mushrow tells us that there are 19 great American lies. I'm going to tell you 12 of them. Number 1, the check is in the mail. Number 2, I'll start my diet tomorrow. Number 3, we service what we sell. Number 4, give me your number, the doctor will call you right back. Number 5, money cheerfully refunded. Number 6, one size fits all. Number 7, I remember this one. This is going to hurt you more than it hurts me. Number 8, I need just 5 minutes of your time. Number 9, your table will be ready in a few minutes. 10, let's have lunch sometimes. 11, it's not the money, it's the principle. And then the 12th lie is, I'm from the federal government and I'm here to help you. Use whatever creative description you want. Strategic misrepresentation, reality augmentation, terminological inexactitude. Not being truthful and the problems that it creates is no new issue. Neither is it limited to our culture. Remember Pinocchio, who shunned Jiminy Cricket's advice and decided that lying was the way to avoid trouble? His nose continued to grow and became a universal symbol of dishonesty. If only it worked that way, there'd be a lot of people running around with awfully big noses, don't you think? Deception has become an accepted norm in our current culture. We may not have the noses for it, but we're living in the midst of a Pinocchio syndrome, to borrow a phrase from Google Shouting. Like Grandma, who took her 2 grandchildren out to lunch and they misbehaved. And on the way home, one of them, the 7-year-old girl, said, "Are you going to tell Mom how we acted?" And Grandma says, "No," but she asked, "I can't lie." Little boy says, "Well, what do you mean you can't lie? I'm 5 years old and I lie just great." He was honest. I'm addressing the Pinocchio syndrome because of number 9 in God's 10 Commandments, and it's found next in Exodus 20, verse 16. Very simply it says, "You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor." Now, I've had this reoccurring dream that every day, as you all are getting ready to go wherever we're going to do, you stand in the mirror and you go through all these finger exercises that I teach you. Right? Of course you have been. Let's take a look at the 9th commandment, the 9 fingers that we'll use. We'll hold 4 fingers up in one hand, 5 in the other, and then we'll place one as if it's on a Bible and take an oath. Will not give false testimony. That's the 10. First commandment, hold up 1 finger, one God, only one God. Second commandment, 2 fingers, 1 bows down, no idols. Third commandment, 3 fingers over a mouth, do not take the Lord's name in vain. 4 fingers, lay it on our cheek, observe the Sabbath. 5th, over our heart, honor our mother and father. Honor our mother and father. 6th commandment, do not murder. 7th commandment, do not commit adultery. 8th commandment, do not steal. And again, the 8th commandment, something like that. Do not lie. Okay, you've got them down, practice that. There's going to be a final exam in 2 weeks, okay? Now, the 9th commandment is specifically speaking about not lying to get someone else in trouble in a legal situation. And I want somehow gracefully to get from this 9th command to a more general topic of being a people of truth in general. You and I, and the people in the first century, have a tendency to take these 10 commandments and use them to impose limits, rather than seeing that they are there for doing the opposite. We see that it says not to commit adultery, so we say that lusting but not going any farther is okay. We see that it says not to murder, so we just go ahead and hate someone, we just don't kill them. Jesus gets a hold of those ideas in the Sermon on the Mount, and he says that misses the point entirely. And we could do the same with this command today, very easily. Don't give false testimony. In other words, don't lie about someone in such a way that you hurt them. Or, as some people have adopted, don't lie as if it's going to hurt someone. So we can say there, I don't lie about people to their harm. I've kept this command. But like the rest of the top 10, the New Testament repeats and expands this command into a more general need. That need is what I want to talk about, but we won't mention that until the end. And the way we'll get there is a little different than usual. The letter A in your outline, I want to start with this fact. You cannot separate God from truth. You cannot separate God from truth. Someone wrote this. I can't find the author, but I really liked it. And it says, I'd like a small serving of God. Not so much that I'm too full for other things. Not so little that other people can't see him on the plane. I'd like just enough God for me to feel like he's there, but not such a big helping that there's no room for dessert. Small enough that if I decide I don't want him, I can cover him over with my napkin. And when you put him on the plate, make sure he doesn't touch the other stuff. I don't want him mixed in with everything else. I'd like just a small serving of God. Isn't that where a lot of us are? Maybe we don't come right out and say it, but in our thinking or our practice, we want just enough of God to sweeten life, but not to upset. For many, that means we don't want to have to put up with that byproduct of God that we call truthfulness. But you can't separate God from the truth. In fact, number 1 out of this outline, truth is who he is. The Holy Spirit is 3 times called the Spirit of Truth by Jesus, in just a short period of time between John 14, 15, and 16. In John 1:14, we read that Jesus was described by John as the one who was full of grace and truth. And Jesus himself said in John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Add to that the words of John that the Holy Spirit is the truth. And there's a pattern here, a pattern telling us that truth is who God is, like it or not. I'm told that my heritage includes Prussian, German, French, and Cherokee Indian. I can't change that. And neither can you. Whether you approve it or not, like it or not, that's a part of who I am just as surely as I'm sitting here this morning. I could legally maybe have my name changed from Eating to Randolph. I could have my face altered. I can't change my genetic makeup, as flawed as that may be. It's part of who I am. If you invite me over to your house, but not the French part of me, I'm sorry. It comes with the rest of me. If you want to speak to me, but not to the Cherokee Indian part of me, I'm sorry. You see, those features have to do with my very being. I'm a package deal. It's the same way with God. If you want any part of God, you take this truth part too, because truth is who He is. In fact, it's so much of who He is that He can't lie. Does that surprise you? The second part of the outline says He can't lie, because lying is detestable to Him. If you open up to Proverbs 6 and look at verses 16 through 19, as we have it on the wall for you, it lists 7 things that God finds detestable. Among them are a lying tongue and a person who bears false witness. I think it would be an interesting study to make a list sometime of things that God can't do. Now, there aren't many, but this is one of them. Truth is too much of who God is for Him ever to lie. In Numbers 23:19, it says, God is not a man that He should lie, nor a son of man that He should change His mind. Does He speak and then not act? Does He promise and not fulfill? In Titus 1:2, Paul says, the hope of eternal life, which God, who does not lie, promised before the beginning of time. The result of these things is a God who always deals truthfully and whose word is always true. John 17:17 says, sanctify them by the truth. Your word is truth. So there's no surprise that number 3, He uses truth to accomplish His work, to build and to free. Look at John 8. It says, to the Jews who had believed Him, Jesus said, if you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And John 3:21, Jesus says, but whoever lives by the truth comes into the light, so that it may be seen plainly that what He has done has been done through God. Truth is who He is. He hates lying. He can't lie. And He uses truth to accomplish His purposes. Maybe by this point you feel like you've received a review of the obvious. But you see, our lives don't always say it's obvious. Isn't it strange that we so often doubt what God plainly says? If you trusted me, if you knew me to be to be a person of integrity, if you knew me as someone who didn't lie, and I told you something that was a challenge for you to believe, would you believe me based on my history? But isn't it strange? God says if we'll seek Him and His kingdom first, He'll provide for all our needs. Yet, we don't always act like we think He's telling the truth. Isn't it strange? God says if we're lacking wisdom, we should ask Him for it, and He'll give it, yet we don't bother asking, or we don't expect Him to answer. Isn't it strange? God says the fervent prayers of a righteous man can accomplish much, yet we tend to act like prayer does very little, if anything. Isn't it strange? Jesus says He's coming back again soon, yet we tend to live like we don't expect it to happen anytime soon. Why is that? Isn't God trustworthy? Remember, you can't separate God from truth. Now, I'm going to turn the corner, and in fact, I'm going to head into the opposite direction. And I'm going to see how number 2, or letter B, you can't separate Satan from falsehood. Mark, your devotion was perfect for my message this morning. Some folks have a reputation for lying, and we all remember the story of the boy called Wolf. His constant lying finally got him in serious trouble. The story is told of a man who was walking down a country road on a hot day, and he walked past this horse out in the pasture. The horse yells up to the man, "Hot day, ain't it?" And the man stopped and he looked at the horse. He said, "Did you say something?" The horse said, "I said, it's hot out, ain't it?" And the man was dumbfounded. He says, you're. And the horse says, "I know, a talking horse. So tell me, why am I out here? I win the Kentucky Derby in '87, and then I don't win it in the next year, and they put me on the pasture." The man says, "Hey, I'll help you out. How would you like to have me as your owner?" And the horse said, "Great." He points the guy over to the farmhouse. And with doubtful signs in his eyes, the man knocks on the door, and the old farmer answers the door and says, "Can I help you?" The man says, "Excuse me, sir, I was just wondering, would you consider selling that horse out in the pasture?" The farmer says, "Oh, not really. I've never figured he was worth much anymore." The man says, "I'm prepared to give you $5,000 right now, cash for him." And the guy says, "Save your money, man. I wouldn't do that to you." He says, "No, really, I really want to buy. I think he's worth it." And the farmer says, "Okay, I see. But you need to know something. That horse is the biggest liar in the county. I bet he told you he won the Derby in '87. Some folks rightly gain a reputation for being liars. Now, Satan goes beyond that. He's the standard setter. The first thing is that he's a part of who he is now. We don't have all the details of how the devil got to where he is today, but we do know that he's made a vocation of being a deceiver. Revelation 12:9 says, "The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil," or Satan, "who leads the whole world astray." If you look up the word liar in the dictionary, there should be a picture of Satan, whatever he looks like, right there, like at you. Number two, he's the father of lies. You see, lying is his native tongue. And I can usually tell when someone's speaking English isn't speaking his native language. I remember when I was in high school, I went to Paris with several classmates. And maybe, even though I'd taken 5 years of French in junior high and high school, it was very obvious to the people that French was not my native tongue. I wasn't very skilled at it. I didn't speak it very well. And the looks of those people's faces told me that. And I'm sure they recognized my English accent. But when I spoke English, they could tell I was speaking the language I knew very well. Jesus said in John 8:44, regarding Satan, "He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies." When Satan lies, he speaks his native language. And that's the one he's skilled at, the one he does best. Lying is the devil's native language. So when we're being deceitful, what language do we use? Satan's lies aren't just words. The deception business has several subdivisions. In 2 Corinthians 11, we learn that Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. So number three, he uses deception to accomplish his word, to destroy and to enslave. Satan is on the prowl. The Bible says, like a lion seeking to devour someone. His work is the work of ruining people forever. And the main weapon in his arsenal is deceit. In 2 Corinthians 4, Paul writes, "The God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers so that they cannot see the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God." I'm going to do a little word association with you, and I need you to help me with this. I'm going to name a business, and I want you to tell me what is associated with that business. If I call out a name, you tell me, okay? When I mention Colonel Holland Sanders, you think of chicken. When I think of Nike, you think of, well, not so much anymore, is it? That broke after I wrote this. Walt Disney, you think of Disney, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, all that. You think of Tiger Woods, you think of Peyton Manning, you think of the world's greatest football player ever to play, to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. That's, yeah, see? When I mention Satan, you should think lies. Lies are his business. And you can't separate Satan from falsehood. Now, look at this next passage and look at the relation between rejecting the truth and being lost. It says in 2 Thessalonians, The coming of the lawless one will be in accordance with the work of Satan, displayed in all kinds of counterfeit miracles, signs and wonders, and in every sort of evil that deceives those who are perishing. They perish because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. That whole scene of people who are lost and dying features an enemy whose main tool is deception. One who tells lies, that God doesn't mean what he says, that what's wrong is right, that how you treat others doesn't matter, that satisfaction in life can be found in the wrong places. If you didn't trust me, if you knew me to be, if you knew me well enough to be a person who lacked integrity, if you knew me to be someone whose word you can't trust, who was frequently caught in lies, and I told you something, maybe even something easy to believe, would you believe me based on that history? I hope not. But isn't it strange? Satan tells us that things matter more than people or relationships, and we sometimes act like we believe him. Isn't it strange? Satan says that we should take life into our own hands, try to make it without God's help, and too often that's where we end up. Isn't it strange? Satan says that pursuing personal happiness is life's greatest goal, and there's a lot of us that says that we believe him. Isn't it strange? Satan tells us to doubt that Jesus will ever return. What is it about the way we live that says we believe the devil on this one? When did the devil become so trustworthy? Remember, you can't separate Satan from falsehood, but by now I hope you're asking, what does this have to do with me? Well, here it is. The third thing, you can't separate yourself from both. Neither will they mix well. Perhaps if we could just create a little tolerance here. Isn't that the pop phrase of the day? If we could just find some middle ground where we could get them to coexist, life would be a whole lot simpler. After all, what's the big deal? But the fact is that no one can separate himself from truth and falsehood as if they were non-issues in our lives. They matter. One is uniquely tied to God and the other is uniquely tied to Satan. They matter because we say a lot about where our loyalty lies if we choose to lie. What we do with truth says a lot about the condition of our hearts. You did know you had a heart condition, did you not? Jeremiah 17:9 says, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? And when lies are part of our life, it tells about our heart condition. Jesus to the Pharisees in Matthew 12 says, you brood of vipers, how can you who are evil say anything good? For out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. And it works in both directions. What comes out of our mouths is going to be an indicator of what's inside. You can't just separate yourself from truth or falsehood. So here are some things to do and to remember. Number one, you don't have to lie. Don't believe for a second that it's ever necessary to lie. There are other alternatives, like trusting God and just telling the truth, like not speaking at all. You don't have to lie. Number two, you don't have to repeat misinformation or gossip. If you're not sure about the truth of something, it would be better to not repeat it rather than being a gardener of falsehood. Number three, you don't have to exaggerate to be interesting. What is exaggeration except what we might consider a mild form of deception? Even if you always do it now, this is a good time to stop. Number four, you do need to put away hypocrisy, which is just another way of saying something that isn't true. Number five, you do need to speak the truth in love to build others up. Paul says in Ephesians 4, therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to his neighbor, for we are all members of one body. This means speaking the truth when it's not comfortable or even when it hurts. In the home that I grew up in, lying was right there up towards the top of things that you just don't do. I could talk with my mouth full, I could make a mess, I could skip school, I could accidentally burn the house down, but don't lie. I think I understand that better. I think I understand what Dad was teaching. The choice to be a person of God is a choice to be a person of truth. So decide this morning which it will be for you. If you've accepted Jesus but find that your life is still full of deception, you make the decision this morning that you're going to be a person of God, which means becoming a person of truth. If you've never accepted Jesus, make the decision this morning to put away falsehood and take on the character of Christ. Become a person of truth. And you may be sitting there and you might be saying, aren't you being a little strong, suggesting that being deceptive will keep you from heaven? No, I'm just being simple. For when Revelation 21:8 says that all liars shall have their part in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death, I believe it. When Revelation 22:15 talks about people going into heaven and then says, outside of the dogs, those who practice magic arts, the sexually immoral, the murderers, the idolaters, and everyone who loves and practices falsehood, I believe it. You can't separate God from truth, and this morning you can't cling to Him and to lies. And so the choice to be a person of God is a choice to be a person of truth, to embrace truth, to stop living in the cloud of darkness, to quit the cover-up, to stop lying to yourself and everyone else by saying everything is just fine. One thing I ask of you today, just decide to be a person of truth right now. Let's pray. Father, in this dark, dark world in which we live, it can be very easy to use the language of Satan rather than to live the life of God. But Father, you're calling us to be people of truth. You're calling us, Father, to live and to believe that what you say is correct. If we have doubts in that, O Lord, help us to overcome that doubt. Let us make a decision right now to be people of truth. And if you will, chip off the old block as we see you, the Father of truth. Open our eyes, Lord. Let us see how you want us to live. In Jesus' name we pray this.